Well, you take every loss as a learning experience, and yeah, Miami's got a lot to work on and a lot to tweak and fix in the passing game.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I am Alex Donno, your host. I'm a University of Miami alumnus, longtime South Florida sports radio vet, and contributor to allhurricanes.com. And thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen today. Available free wherever you get your podcasts and available free on YouTube. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. So the Hurricanes passing game has been a huge topic of conversation, not to mention the red zone offense. So I figured I want to bring on a former Canes quarterback who's also going to be my co-host on Hurricanes post-game shows now through the end of the year. Malik Rosier is with us. Malik, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Actually in Tampa, prepping up. I'm going to be heading down to Miami tomorrow for the game on Saturday. So definitely excited to get here on the weekend. You know, it's Thursday, almost Friday. So I'm definitely excited.
No, absolutely. And listen, of course, everyone remembers Malik. And, you know, he was part of that 10-win team in 2017, quarterbacking the huge win against Florida State, the huge win against Notre Dame, which is one of my favorite moments in Hard Rock Stadium of all time. And, you know, Malik, I'd love your take on, you know, not only on, you know, the offense in that Texas A&M game where they were moving the football so well, really up until they got into the red zone. And based on what we've seen so far, Miami's got a lot of injuries now at wide receiver. What would you like to see from Miami's receivers and from Tyler Van Dyke to really get that passing game going more consistently?
Yeah. I would say first, just really building chemistry this week. I think this week's going to be a big week, in practice. You're going to have you guys set for not only 1 week, but for 2 weeks now. You're going to have the same receiver. So getting that chemistry, getting it going. I think the game plan would be very similar to kind of a Southern Miss game plan where I think we're going to run the ball heavy. I think that, this team has an identity of the run game, which is good. You mentioned the Notre Dame game. If you go back and look at that stats, the whole second half, I didn't throw. So there's nothing wrong with being a run dominating team. And I personally love that. But, I think the big thing is when the guys are open, hit them, create confidence, take an easy throw. And I think, if Tyler can keep throws within 10 yards, and slowly build confidence. And then as the game goes on, you take those 30, 40-yard goes, post, the 15-yard comebacks, it's kind of like baby stepping the receivers in, get them comfortable, get them catching the ball, build their confidence, really emphasizing, hey, focus on catching and we'll do run after catch second. So that's the biggest thing is I just want to see the pass game really focus on having no drop balls. If you don't get yards after catch, that's fine. If you catch and they tackle you, that's fine. But really focus on just catching the ball and then let's progress to yards after catch. So that's really where I want to see the pass game go.
You know, I mentioned last week the big frustration from the offense was once things got down into the red zone, right? And
Mm-hmm.
if you look at the statistic, of course, you get into the red zone 4 times, you come away with, no touchdowns, only field goal tries in there. It's obviously a frustrating thing to watch. So I'm curious from a guy who played the game, because you can understand things from the perspective of a quarterback where, I try to put myself in the shoes of an offensive coordinator when I'm watching this. And there's a lot of people who were second guessing, the play calling. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
people were second guessing the quarterback play. So what did you see from Miami in the red zone? Why couldn't they punch it in?
Yeah, I would say, well, one, I think that A&M did a good job of adjusting coverages. So I don't know how much people have gone back and really watched game 1 to 2 to this game, but if you watch, I mean, you look at them in the open field, they were heavy, heavy cover one, one rad, one lurk. They played us, they were heavy cover three. Same thing with the red zone. They transitioned over to what we called like red seven. They had 3 down linemen. They had 8 to 9 people drop back in coverages. And that was something that they didn't show until they really started playing us. So I think the adjustment is where I want to see Miami get better in the red zone, because every team that watched that A&M game, and every team's going to watch it, they're going to steal those plays, the defensive plays, especially in the red zone, and they're going to use it. So we have to find either coverages or not coverages, but routes or combinations or rubs, whatever, beat that. I would say a lot of times with that, you just got to take underneath routes because they know that you want to take the shot to the end zone. And the big thing is taking the underneath routes, and it's the receiver's jobs after to make a guy miss and go score. A lot of times they do that on third down or second and long because they know that, you can't go outside the end zone. So they basically, hey, get to the middle of the end zone, make the throw high so that, if the ball goes up, it usually is going to go out of bounds because it's going to go over the receiver's head. So that's kind of where usually in the red zone, when people run kind of that red 7 blanket, the defenses definitely have an advantage in the pass game, at least down there because of the zone restriction.
Something we've talked a lot about, and Malik Rosier, former Miami Hurricanes quarterback, joins us. It's definitely, we've had to have a next man up mentality, especially at the wide receiver position, right? Because first 2 games, it was very clear Xavier Restrepo was the #1 target. He gets injured. He's going to miss several more weeks, right? And then Miami gets Jacolby George back from suspension, and, he made some plays. So you're thinking, okay, maybe, maybe this is the guy. And then he breaks his thumb.
Hurt.
He's going to be out for several weeks. So, talk about the challenges of losing maybe your top 2 receivers on the team. And, would you like to see somebody, because a big topic on Locked On Canes this week has been maybe cross-training some people, and it wouldn't be that much of a stretch for a guy like Jaleel Skinner, who's playing tight end. He's got kind of a wide receiver frame, to get him more involved in the passing game, and maybe even think about a guy like Malik Curtis, who's playing corner, but he's got a background at a wide receiver. Should Miami do maybe some cross-training or experimentation?
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad idea. I think it's just something that they have to kind of figure out what they're going to do with Jaleel. Like if you're going to transfer him to an X, like make him an X, or if you're going to have what I call like 13 package where it's still 3 tight ends, but he's not labeled as like a receiver, because there are certain concepts in plays where like tight ends have to think like a tight end and a receiver have to think like a receiver. So I think that, there should be ways where they should go 13 personnel, split Will and Jaleel out, have Elijah at the attached tight end. And now you're going to have safeties and linebackers on your big 6'6", 6'7" tight end split out wide. So there should be concepts where like you don't technically have to transfer him to a receiver. You can build in 12, 13 personnel where he's still a tight end, but now he's split out at the receiver position. So that's just more of a game planning and making sure that he's comfortable running routes. At the end of the day, like I don't know where his route running is. I know he's an exceptional athlete, but sometimes it has to do with, like if he's just learning tight end, when you split him out, the run game changes, the pass game obviously changes the route tree. So like slowly walking some of these younger kids through, because that kid's going to play at some point, but it's like you don't want to get it too early to where he starts losing confidence. You want to make sure that every route from every play that you call, like he's confident in running everything. So that's kind of where I see his transgression is. I think as the season goes on, he'll have to play more and he will play more, but I think he's trying to just regurgitate that new offense. Obviously this is a very complex offense. It's a good offense. So just about him learning and him being prepared.
Yeah, and I want to talk a little bit more with Malik, who's nice enough to join us on this episode, about, what it might be like for these players to be transitioning into a new offense, because it's obviously pretty different from what Rhett Lashley was running last season. And listen, I have to ask Malik about Hard Rock Stadium, because he's been there for the best and the worst of it, right? He quarterbacked in the best atmosphere I've ever seen, and I've covered almost every Dolphins game and Canes game there. That's one of the best atmospheres I've ever seen there. And I've also been there at noon on some Saturdays when you can't draw flies. So we have a lot to get to. Keep it locked right here to Locked On Canes. Guys, if you're feeling like you just can't get into shape, it's not your fault. As men age, our body naturally loses free testosterone, the man hormone. It happens to every man and can make it more difficult to stay in shape and be energetic and active. I'm pushing 40. I'm starting to feel that now, guys. So if you want more energy to counter the negative physical effects of aging, Nugenix Total T Testosterone Booster with Testofen will help you turn back the clock, re-energize your workouts, get you better results at the gym, and help you look and feel like the man you really want to be. I've been fighting that dad bod for a couple of years, guys. Nugenix Total T contains man-boosting key ingredients like Testofen. It has been validated in 5 clinical studies shown to boost free testosterone levels in men. Because Nugenix Total T boosts free testosterone that aging process robs you from, you're going to feel stronger, leaner, with more energy and drive and more passion too. And your partner is going to notice the difference as well. Nugenix Total T is the #1 selling testosterone booster at GNC. Now get a complimentary bottle of Nugenix Total T when you text college to 231 231. Text now and get a bottle of Nugenix Thermo, their most powerful fat incinerator ever, with key ingredients to help you get back into shape fast, absolutely free. So text college to 231231. Text college to 231231. Message and data rates may apply, by the way. Terms apply. Available at nugenix.com/terms. Thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen today. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts, available free on YouTube, part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. So, Malik, last year we saw Tyler Van Dyke absolutely thrive, specifically those final 6 games where he was over 300 yards passing and over 3 touchdowns every single game to end the year. And, it really made Rhett Lashley's offense look great. Some say Rhett Lashley's offense made Tyler look even better, whatever it was. Miami transitions from that up-tempo spread to a pro-style offense this year. And maybe it's not just TVD, it's all the personnel on that offense. Do you think they're still adjusting to that transition? How difficult do you think that is, not only for a quarterback, but for skill position guys as well?
Yeah, there's definitely a transition period. One, I think, from just the terminology. So obviously, like, a dig's a dig, but some people call it a dig, some people call it a square in, some people call it a in cut. So sometimes learning, at least switching your brain from what you've learned it from last year's offense to, their terminology is going to be one thing that's definitely a barrier. Also, just the way people run routes. Like, I know whenever we had James Coley, we ran comebacks where they went to 15 and then they were down and out 45 degrees. When we ran Rick, our comeback was straight up to 15 and now down the stem. So there's small things like that too, that coaching staff, they'll run the same route, but how they come out of the break, whether it's, a speed cut, whether it's, they have to like stick and cut, small things like that, they'll have to change. So I think there is a learning curve, but for the most part, I think it's just about confidence. I think from a quarterback standpoint, at least for me, like I think from a quarterback, understanding why he's calling what he's calling is the biggest thing. You know what I mean? Understanding, hey, like, he's calling this play because we understand on 1st and 2nd down inside, if we're at like 1st and 10, like, this is the coverage. If it's 2nd and 7, then this is the coverage. So understanding that he has his call sheet based on coverage tendencies, and like that's going to change whether, you have a guy like Gattis that's more run heavy guy, or you're going to have a guy like Lashley that's going to be more pass heavy. So that's where it's kind of like, as a quarterback, getting into your OC's head and understanding like what he's thinking and why he's thinking it is like the biggest challenge going from one offensive coordinator to the next, because that's what it's going to take, is that OC trusting you that no matter what play I call, the quarterback is going to put me in the right play, make the right decision. So that's kind of where, like, as a quarterback, you have to understand the mind of your actual OC.
And speaking of the OC in the mind, I wanted to bring something up because I'm experiencing this. I noticed, a lot of people, obviously, after, no touchdown scored in Texas A&M, a lot of people will just knee-jerk react to complain about the offensive coordinator. And then everybody's talking about, oh, how much I miss Rhett Lashley. I want to remind people of something, okay? I'm not saying Rhett Lashley didn't do a good job, right? I really enjoyed the passing game last year. So I'm not going to say he didn't do a good job. But I recall a lot of you complaining about the running game under Lashley. And, oh, my God, these handoffs from shotgun, we can't pick up a yard. And now everyone completely forgets about that. Like this year when Miami is running the football really well, you guys are like, oh, I miss Rhett Lashley so much. Let's not forget, people were complaining about that. So, like, I don't know, Malik, if there's a perfect offensive coordinator or offensive situation out there, but I notice a lot of the people who are now complaining about Gattis are forgetting about some of the things they complained about Lashley for.
Yeah, the biggest thing that I'll say is that the pass game, at least from my experience, the pass game usually takes longer for chemistry wise than the run game. The run game is very simple. It's, hey, you're going to move right, you're going to get on his inside or outside edge. Back, you're going to watch the guard. You're going to go from his go aim at the guard or aim at the tackle. Pass game kind of involves everybody. You have to have the offensive line on the right cues. You have the receivers run the right routes, the running backs run the right routes. Not only that, I'm pretty positive in this offense, they're probably reading coverages and they're adjusting their routes based on coverage. So that's kind of where it takes a lot of chemistry, because Tyler has to trust that some of these younger receivers are adjusting their routes based on what they see. I'll give you a good example that I'm pretty sure it was either Keyshawn or Redding. They had the false start that Tyler hit like the deep comeback. He was on the right hash, did all the way to the left. That's supposed to be a go route. The receiver was smart to say, hey, he's deep. Let me stop and come back because he's 15 yards ahead of me. So it's like that adjustment in the pass game is where, like, people don't understand that it takes time, it takes chemistry, it takes receivers kind of knowing what they're seeing and how to run their route based on what they're seeing. Because you can run a dig, but if it's quarters, cover one rat, or even three, like that same route will change based on his leverage, based on who's around him. So that's where it takes a lot of just repetitions with Tyler and these young guys, because how someone runs a dig, like Jacolby George is going to run a different than Keyshawn, and Keyshawn's going to run a dig different than Brashard Smith. So it's like having those chemistry, knowing like their angles, their breaks, their speed, like how they're going to come out takes a lot longer than, the line moving 5 or 6 guys and the running back finding a hole. So that's where it will take longer for the pass game to develop. But at least from having the right athletes at receivers, we obviously have great athletes at receivers, tight ends, and running backs, and obviously we have a really good quarterback. So I think we at least have the right pieces. It's just about them figuring it out and kind of creating that chemistry between each other so that they're clicking on that cylinder.
And a lot of this makes me feel better, by the way. And I love the way first of all, when Malik breaks down schematics, it makes me feel very dumb. But I feel like I learned something. So I love this. I love this so much. Now, something that, people have been asking me about this throughout the week, suffering a tough loss on prime time. Any concern about Miami having a letdown game? I'm not really concerned because I'm assuming they're very angry after, the way things went down last week.
Yeah, I would say this: play angry, but also play smart. I think that's like the biggest thing that we have to do. And I would say this: I felt like the first half of that A&M game, we let our emotions take over our ability to play. And you saw we had the drop punt. Obviously, I know Tyreek personally. I was at Georgia with him, so that kid cares. You know what I mean? Like, there's no one on the team that's going to care as more as Tyreek. But it's like he let his emotion of him, I need to make this play, instead of you just doing your job. And it's like, as long as we can keep those emotions in check, because I know there's going to be guys that are pissed off, especially like the older guys, because that was a bragging right game. So it's like, keep your emotions in check. As long as you do your job, like we'll beat every team on our schedule. It's not that, but as you can tell, like we have to do every little thing right to beat a team like Texas A&M. Whenever we play Clemson, whenever we go in and play for the ACC championship game, like those little mistakes that like don't eat us up in games like Middle Tennessee will in bigger, closer games. So that's where it's like I really just want to see them be as clean, as polished as they can. Because I think that's what Miami has been missing for a very long time, is just discipline, and not discipline for like 1 or 2 quarters, but 1 through 4. I would say, honestly, the only complete game that I remember us playing with pure discipline was that Notre Dame game. Like, it clicked: offense, defense, special teams. Like, you saw what a complete Miami football team hitting on every cylinder looks like. But that was because we played disciplined football. We didn't have a lot of penalties. Didn't have a ton of turnovers. They had the turnovers. We protected the ball. So it's like, when you play good football, we have the athletes to blow basically anybody out. But it's about us doing our job and making sure we're doing the right thing.
So we got to talk when we come back with Malik Rosier about stadiums, because I think people blew it up a little bit too much, what Tyler Van Dyke said. But listen, I want to talk to a guy who has played in that stadium and has been there with some incredible crowds and some not so great crowds. So make sure you keep it locked to that. Alex Donno with Malik Rosier. And guys, make sure you're like me and you're on BetOnline every single day. BetOnline.net is your #1 source for football betting info this season. Find all the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, and in-depth articles and analysis on every game you can find. Miami's a 25.5-point favorite this week. And as always, BetOnline remains your continued source for all your sport wagering info, with live betting and up-to-the-minute scores for every sport out there. The fastest and easiest way to check in on all of your favorite games and events, including Major League Baseball, MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to betonline.net or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. Here on Locked On Canes. So, we did an episode last night about this, Malik, with, Tyler Van Dyke talking about the atmosphere versus college atmospheres when Miami visits other universities. What was your experience like at Hard Rock Stadium? Because like I mentioned, and we've talked a lot about that Notre Dame game, best live crowd I've ever witnessed in that stadium. And I've been to probably hundreds of games there over the years. That was the best live crowd ever. And listen, I also go to games like the Southern Miss game a couple weeks ago, noon kickoff, non-conference, where not a whole lot of people make their way into their seats. So what's your take on playing in that environment versus going on the road?
Yeah, I would definitely agree with Tyler. I would say that A lot of teams, and not even teams, I feel like a lot of schools in general circle Miami whenever we play there. So I would say that most times whenever we'll watch games and the stadium's barely sold out, we'll go there and it's a complete full crowd. So I think that's kind of why we love it, is because, Miami's always kind of had that convicts, like, oh, everyone hates us, it's us against the world. And when you go on an away game, you actually feel like this is what it feels like to be hated. And I know they felt that. You had 107,000 people literally screaming at you. So I think that's kind of why, is that whenever you go to the big away games, you feel what they were talking about as you watch like the U part two, and you kind of see how like people really didn't like Miami, but they couldn't do anything about it. And it's like whenever you go on road games, you definitely feel that. I do wish that more home games were like the Florida State game and the Notre Dame game, because those two games, even the Virginia Tech we played that year, that was a great game. And it's like, that's what you need, man. I think a lot of fans talk about recruiting, and you fans have to understand that you can call whatever play you want to, but it's really about the X's and O's. It's really about the guys that are running the routes, the guys that are defending. And when fans show up, when they're screaming, like I can tell you, Brevin Jordan and Jaron Williams both committed to us because they came to that Notre Dame game. They felt the atmosphere. They loved the game. They were like, man, like this is what I want to play for. This is why, like, you go to college football. And it's just kind of that feeling. It's like, everyone's here to support these college athletes, and that's why you go to universities, because you want that support. Because when you go to Alabama, when you go to Georgia, when you go to A&M, all those guys are there supporting them, and they have jobs, they have other stuff they got to do on Saturdays and Sundays, they have families too. I know Miami's a bigger city, I know there's a lot to do, but at the end of the day, if we want to compete with them, and this is outside the school, we got to support those guys on the field too. Because I promise you, when they look up every Saturday at College Station and that thing's sold out and our players look up, there is a different feeling. There is a different presence. There is a different intensity. I mean, even from an offensive standpoint, a lot of teams, when they come to Miami, and I've said it before, teams go on full cadence. They say down, set, hut. We go to A&M, we're clapping, we're knee up. We can't hear. And that affects offensive line's communication. That affects the receivers' communication. That affects everybody, even from the coaching staff. Like I remember we played at Louisville freshman year, and it almost became a big issue because it got so loud to where we couldn't hear on our headset. So James Coley couldn't tell us the play to give to Brad. And that was because they were screaming their heads off on third down. So that's the effect that, like, fans don't understand, that you not only have an effect on the actual players, but there's times when you get loud enough where it'll literally affect the communications of the headset. So now, like, away game teams or really having a problem communicating to each other. So there's times that's happened before, and we've actually had James Coley come stand behind us and yell in our ear the play call, so we're able to signal it because the headset stopped working.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like I think it's just up to the fans to really be like everything you're talking about, be consistent, go out to games, support the team. Obviously, there's a lot of chatter about a new stadium, and I appreciate all the work that the Ruiz family is doing, because I do think that there could be benefits to Miami having their own building and not renting one from Stephen Ross and the Miami Dolphins. But then at the same time, having your own stadium doesn't automatically, make 65,000 crazy people there. Like, it's still up to the fans to do it. And, so I'm curious as to your take on that, Malik, because also I'm sure if you had a stadium a couple miles away from campus, I'm sure more students would show up, but there's not a lot of students, period. Like, people forget that Texas A&M had 3 times as many students in their student section as Miami has enrolled in their university. So it's like, you're not going to automatically get,
get that. Yeah. And
yeah. So I'm curious, like, what's your thoughts on the whole stadium debate and what the Ruiz family's working on?
Yeah. Personally, I love it. I 100% agree. I think Miami does need their own stadium. At the end of the day, when something is yours and only yours, you're going to protect that a lot more than if you're sharing it with a whole nother organization, a whole nother team. Secondly, I think about, like, imagine if Miami wanted to do a pregame event every Friday for the student body at the Hard Rock. Would they be able to? And the way I think about it is, you remember, I know all of us are making fun of Texas A&M, but they had their guys on the field. They were doing that whole little weird march thing, but it's like, there's events, there's stuff that you can do now because you own it. You don't have to ask anyone for permission. You're saying, screw it, we're doing it. We don't care. Like, we want to do this. So I think you have the ability to do stuff. And I do think you slowly do get student body. So the biggest thing I would say is that the guys that are going to be donators are going to be people that went to university. And I know anyone that lives in Miami, you're slowly seeing it, that there are more people from the Northeast, New York, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, that are slowly moving down to Miami. Also, those are the same people that are enrolled at Miami, is that northeastern New York, New Jersey area. So I think that if we can give them a slow bond of saying, hey, like we have the campus on stadium, the kids come to the game, because I'll tell you at Georgia, it's not loud as you would think it is. It's a lot of just mom and pops that have been going to the game since they were in college. They're now taking their kids, they're taking their cousins, they're taking their whoever's in town for Athens. And so that's kind of where I see the Reese trying to go into, is saying, hey, we're not worried about selling out now, but in 20, 30 years, as we built this brand loyalty of students to the student athletes, you'll have people that live in Miami that's like, hey, I'm not doing anything on Saturday, I want to go. But for me, like, if I have no connection, if I've never been to a football game, if I'm 30 years old chilling in Miami, why would I go to one now?
Yeah.
And that's kind of where you build that loyalty, by having something that's easy for them. Because I think about it, like, these kids are paying $250,000 to have to drive 30, 40 minutes on a yellow bus, intoxicated as I don't know what, hot, sweaty, to then get up there and tailgate in the sun again. It's just like if you want to get people to buy in, get the 18 and 19-year-olds, 20-year-olds that have a mom, dad pay for them to go there. So they'll buy into that. So when they graduate, they'll give that same money back to university. So it's really having that buy-in process of making it easy for the students to get there. But I do see some there, like you said, there are some issues with our student numbers being low. But I do think that the move is kind of what you need to do, because we're not having great success at Hard Rock unless it's a big game. So it's like, why not try something new? Why not do something on our own? Like, we're big enough. We have the alumni. We have notoriety. I would say we're probably top 2 to 3 just logos of the U, point blank, period. So it's like, we have what it takes. Like, I don't mean to be disrespectful, we're not Middle Tennessee, and they have their own stadium. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So it's like, it's like, come on, like at some point, like kind of like the indoor. When I first got there, Miami didn't have an indoor, so we got the indoor, and now we're doing a great job with the facility. So I'm glad that they're moving on that point. But at some point, we do need our own stadium. I don't know if it's now, I don't know if it's in 5, 10 years, but I do think at some point they do need to have their own stadium to kind of say, this is ours, we own this, we run this, like whatever we want to do here, whether it's a Friday event, whether it's a Sunday practice. You know what I mean? Like, you can't do a Sunday practice at the Hard Rock because the Dolphins play.
Yeah.
So it's like, whatever Mario wants to do. You know what I mean? Like, now we have full access to do what we want without having to ask someone else or get approval from the Miami Dolphins to have access to Hard Rock Stadium.
It makes a lot of sense. Malik Rosier, before we let you run, let people know some of the projects you're working on, because I see your NFTs, and I know you're doing a lot of good things out there. Let people know what they can find.
Yeah, so on our Twitter, it's called Miami Mills Club, or you can go on our website at miamimills.io. But basically what we're doing is this year we've done NIL. I am working with people inside the university right now. I actually just got off a meeting earlier with them about integrating, the business networking side. So I know they have a group that they're working with now, but our biggest thing is helping guys after they graduated, that didn't go to the pros, transitioning into kind of that work world. So what we're doing right now is, if you go on miamimills.io, there's a button up top that says Mint Now. It's $100. We're taking half the proceeds. And I've talked to compliance. We're building actually a business student grant. So it'll be for student athletes only. They'll basically pitch us their business idea. We'll go through and say, hey, this is the one we like the most. And then we'll give them $10,000 to actually help them take that idea and make it into reality. We have business partners that'll help mentor them, that'll help them with website development, that'll help them with all that kind of stuff. So that's really what we're doing. We even have a way that people can use credit card processing. So whether you understand crypto or not, you click Mint Now at the very bottom, it says pay with a credit card. So you would go on, you put in your credit card information, and it'll let you pay right there. So we're making it really simple to transition anyone that doesn't understand crypto, but understands the idea of, hey, we're trying to help Miami guys, whether you make 6 or 7 figures in the NFL, or whether you own your own Fortune 500 company or have a small business. Like, we're here to help you whether you're on the field or off. And that's really what we're trying to build.
I love that. And I think that's great that you make it simple, because, like, I'm invested in crypto and I still don't feel like I understand it. Like, it's
so that's why we had the credit card processor. So like I said, you go on and if you go on Miami Mills Club, or it's Miami Mills Club on Twitter, we actually have tutorial videos that I did myself. And it kind of runs you step by step through, like, this is the process from website to click to the credit card to the mint and everything. So it's super simple. Probably takes a couple minutes. We will have some more stuff. So I know we have like end of the year dinner with about 10 to 12 student athletes that will have them after the year and kind of talk business with them. But that's really what we're trying to help these kids is, as they're making this NIL money, think business now. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to get taxed, but like, if you have $20,000 from all this NIL money, like, what could you use that for? Could you start your own small business? Do you want to do a nonprofit? Do you want to do your own, like we help Cam Harris with Cam Harris 7-on-7? And so it was an event that he wanted to do that we helped him kind of put together like a P&L, a revenue statement, kind of the logistics of running a 7-on-7. Like, it's cool to have an idea, but it's better to turn that idea into a reality. So that's what we're trying to help these kids do, is transition ideas that they have about business into a real business idea or
I love
business
it.
dream. So
Oh, that's fantastic. So make sure you guys follow Malik at Malik Rosier 12 on Twitter. And guys, make sure you make Locked On ACC your second listen. I was on the Thursday episode with Candace Cooper. I do every Thursday now on Locked On ACC. So make sure you support that show. And of course, keep supporting Locked On Canes. We'll talk to you guys again tomorrow. We'll have John Garcia Jr. talking some recruiting, director of football recruiting from Sports Illustrated, right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.